Hello, there was a man who, through a series of sophisticated schemes, rose from being a mere foot soldier to becoming one of the most notorious white powder lords in the United States. In 2014, he made it onto Forbes' billionaire list, ranking 41st among the most powerful people in the world. Despite constant crackdowns, he was arrested twice, but miraculously escaped both times. Today, we will explore the story of this white powder lord, John Goodman. The story begins in New Mexico, one of the states in the southwestern United States, bordered by Arizona and Texas. This region, known for its diverse climate, from scorching deserts to snow-covered forests, is where Goodman was born on April 4, 1957, into a poor farming family. Goodman's family had many siblings, and although there was plenty of farmland, most people in the area lived by growing poppies. Goodman's father was one of the farmers growing poppies, but life was still very difficult for the family. Several of Goodman's siblings died from illness and poverty. In third grade, Goodman had to drop out of school because his family couldn't afford the tuition. He started selling oranges on the street to make a living. In 1972, at the age of 15, Goodman began cultivating banned substances under his father's guidance. After a fallout with his father, Goodman was kicked out of the house and had to live with his grandfather. Due to his short stature of 5 meters, earned the nickname Shorty. Goodman was determined not to live a mediocre life. Even as a young man, he was ambitious and wanted to make something of himself. Goodman had an uncle named Pedro Avila Perez, a skilled pilot and one of the first to use airplanes to smuggle white powder into the United States. Goodman frequently learned from his uncle, gaining valuable insights into the white powder trade. Exposed to the underworld from a young age, Goodman gradually nurtured the idea of getting rich through illegal means. He no longer wanted to live in poverty and decided to take a risk by getting involved in smuggling white powder. Goodman started working for a white powder lord named Hector Luis Palma Salazar. Very quickly, Goodman was tasked with transporting a shipment to the U.S.-Mexico border. This was his first time handling white powder transport, and he understood the rule: the meek are preyed upon. He used ruthless methods to achieve his goals. During the transport, if anyone leaked information, Goodman would eliminate them without hesitation. Conversely, those who followed orders and completed their tasks were generously rewarded. Thanks to his cunning and ruthlessness, Goodman successfully completed the mission. Soon after, he even asked his boss to increase the amount of goods transported. By that time, anyone who knew Goodman was aware that betraying him or collaborating with his rivals would lead to disastrous consequences. At that time, the largest white powder cartel in the United States was the Gulf Cartel, led by Felix Gallardo. Cartel controlled most of the white powder market in the U.S. and the U.S.-Mexico border region. Goodman, whose reputation was growing in the white powder trade, caught Gallardo's attention. Goodman was noticed by a high-ranking leader of the cartel and had the honor of becoming Gallardo's personal driver. Later, Gallardo assigned Goodman to manage all the white powder trafficking routes of the cartel, including land, air, and sea routes from Colombia to Mexico. In the 1980s, white powder cartels in the United States began to operate on a large scale, continuously smuggling white powder from Mexico into the U.S., which greatly angered the U.S. government. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, a law enforcement agency under the U.S. Department of Justice, specializing in combating white powder trafficking and illegal drug use, planted an undercover agent named Enrique Camarena Salazar into the Gulf Cartel. Agent Camarena successfully infiltrated the cartel and gained Gallardo's trust. In November 1984, Agent Camarena risked his life to send intelligence to the DEA, leading to a surprise military raid on a large banned substances plantation owned by the Gulf Cartel. Gallardo was furious at the betrayal of his subordinate. 3 months later, he ordered the brutal murder of Agent Camarena. Gallardo's audacious action angered the U.S. government, which pressured Mexico to track down those involved. Since then, Gallardo lived a life on the run. During this time, the Gulf Cartel fell into disarray due to internal power struggles. Goodman seized this opportunity to take control of the white powder trafficking routes and recruit loyal followers. In 1989, Gallardo was captured in a joint operation by the U.S. and Mexico. The Gulf Cartel officially disbanded. Even in prison, Gallardo continued to run the cartel from afar and split the organization into smaller factions. Goodman, along with Hector Luis Palma Salazar and Ismael Zambada, formed the Sinaloa cartel, which controls the U.S.-Mexico border and continues to spread crime to this day. To expand his white powder smuggling operations, Goodman bought numerous properties across the U.S. to store white powder, weapons, cash, and more. He even dug a tunnel under the U.S.-Mexico border, complete with a rail system to transport goods into the U.S. Not stopping there, Goodman also expanded a chili processing plant and hid white powder inside cans of chili. He bribed border inspectors so that the chili cans could be easily transported into the U.S. by train. Sometimes, Goodman boldly used airplanes to smuggle white powder. With this daring business model, the Sinaloa cartel, led by Goodman, quickly grew into one of the largest white powder trafficking organizations in the U.S. However, in 1992, the Sinaloa cartel had a conflict with another Mexican white powder cartel, the Tijuana cartel, founded by the Arellano Felix brothers after the Gulf cartel's disbandment. Although furious, Goodman wanted to resolve the conflict peacefully, sending an envoy to negotiate with the Tijuana cartel. Unexpectedly, the Tijuana cartel killed Goodman's envoy and even brutally murdered his entire family. Not stopping there, the Tijuana cartel sent a white powder lord named Enrique Rafael Clavel Moreno to seduce Hector Luis Palma Salazar's wife, one of the founders of the Sinaloa cartel. Enrique successfully persuaded Salazar's wife to withdraw $7 million from her husband's bank account. Afterward, she fled with her 2 young children to a motel to meet Enrique. However, Enrique cruelly murdered Salazar's wife in the motel, decapitated her, and sent her head in a box to Palma Salazar. A few days later, Salazar's 2 children were thrown off a bridge. In the U.S. white powder trade, there's an unwritten rule that no matter the rivalry, family members are off limits. Tijuana cartel's actions enraged many people, including Goodman, who was Palma Salazar's close ally. Goodman was determined to avenge Salazar and began planning to eliminate the Tijuana cartel. Enrique Rafael Clavel Moreno was eventually captured and imprisoned for killing Salazar's wife. Goodman and Salazar sent hitmen into the prison to assassinate him. However, the matter didn't end there. In 1993, the Tijuana cartel kidnapped 6 of Goodman's men, forcing them to reveal his whereabouts. They then staged a bomb attack to assassinate Goodman, but it failed. Naturally, Goodman knew everything, and being ruthless, he would not let it slide. Goodman planned a series of violent attacks on the high-ranking members of the Tijuana cartel, causing many casualties. These severe incidents forced the U.S. authorities to get involved. They formed a special task force to investigate. However, by bribing local officials with $10 million, Goodman managed to silence them, and the investigation was quickly dropped. As tensions peaked, the 2 cartels engaged in numerous shootouts and assassination attempts, resulting in many casualties among their lower ranks. the high-ranking members remained unscathed. In May 1993, Tijuana cartel received information that Goodman was at the international airport in Los Angeles. They immediately dispatched 20 hitmen to eliminate him. However, they mistakenly targeted a white car driving by and opened fire, killing everyone inside. It was later discovered that the car's occupants were not Goodman but Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo, prominent leader of the Catholic Church in the United States. Cardinal Ocampo was shot 14 times, and 6 others with him also died. Though Goodman was not directly involved, he was indirectly responsible for the incident. The U.S. government launched a massive manhunt with a $5 million reward, approximately $126 billion in today's currency, for information leading to his capture. Goodman became the most wanted criminal in the United States after this incident. Knowing he had to flee the United States before being caught, Goodman traveled to New York City to meet an old friend. He handed his friend $200 million and asked him to take care of his family. Goodman then fled to Canada, bribing a local official with $1.2 million for asylum. However, the official betrayed him, tipping off the U.S. government and collecting the reward. In June 1993, Goodman was arrested in Canada and extradited to the United States 2 days later. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison for white powder trafficking and bribery. Goodman was incarcerated at ADX Florence, a high-security prison in Colorado, which housed 1,000 inmates. Even in prison, Goodman remained influential, and his white powder cartel had become the largest in the United States, dominating most white powder trafficking routes across the U.S.-Mexico border. Goodman was well-liked by his followers, and many remained loyal to him even after his imprisonment. They regularly visited him, bringing large sums of cash. Each month, Goodman spent a significant amount bribing the prison director and guards, effectively turning them into allies. Naturally, there were a few honest guards who refused to be corrupted. They did not report Goodman's action. His cell was like a private palace, except for the limited freedom. Goodman could comfortably organize parties and enjoy entertainment within the prison. He could still manage his cartel's operations from afar, directing his subordinates to carry out his orders. In fact, Goodman had no intention of escaping, as once free, he would be relentlessly pursued by both the police and his enemies. Instead of living a life on the run, Goodman chose to enjoy his life in prison, especially since he had the chance of reducing his sentence over time. With his exceptional understanding of human psychology, Goodman won over almost everyone in prison. He knew each person's weakness and gave them what they needed. Before long, Goodman became the undisputed boss in the prison. He even had his own personal suite and controlled the guards. During Goodman's imprisonment, his close ally Palma Salazar was also captured and imprisoned in the same facility. However, Palma Salazar was later extradited to the United States. In 2001, 8 years after Goodman was arrested, his cartel continued smuggling white powder into the United States, prompting the U.S. government to send officials to Mexico to demand Goodman's extradition to the U.S. for trial. Goodman knew that once he set foot in the U.S., he would never have a peaceful day again. Instead of waiting to die, Goodman decided to take a gamble and escape. Although Goodman frequently bribed the prison director and guards, they only facilitated small favors, never daring to risk his escape. Goodman approached a laundry worker named Javier Cerros in the prison. Every evening, Javier would push a cart full of dirty bed sheets and blankets out of the cells for washing. Goodman bribed Javier, asking him to hide him in the laundry cart and sneak him out of the prison. The prison was equipped with numerous surveillance cameras. To prevent detection, Goodman bribed several guards to turn off key cameras at the time of his escape. Before the escape plan was executed, nearly all the inmates in Goodman's area knew of his intention to escape, but they all pretended not to know. On the night of Friday, January 19, 2001, Goodman initiated his escape plan. That evening, according to the plan, Javier pushed the laundry cart to Goodman's cell. Goodman quickly climbed into the cart and hid under the dirty sheets. Thanks to his small stature, he easily concealed himself without being noticed. Of course, even if someone saw him, they would pretend they hadn't seen anything. Javier calmly pushed the cart with Goodman out of the prison. It was the first time in Javier's life that he did something so daring. He was very nervous, his heart pounding. Along the way, Javier encountered several other guards, but no one seemed to notice anything unusual. The plan went smoothly, and Goodman escaped from prison. He got into a waiting car and quickly left the scene. Goodman's escape caused an uproar in the U.S. government. They launched a large-scale investigation into the prison. Ultimately, they discovered that 78 people received bribes from Goodman, including at least 15 guards who had assisted in his escape. Not only that, but several local police officers were also bribed, intentionally delaying Goodman's recapture, allowing him to flee. It was estimated that Goodman spent over $2.5 million, approximately $63 billion in today's currency, bribing officials and guards to carry out his escape plan. Successful. After his escape, Goodman vanished from the world. Rumors spread that he had fled to a remote mountainous area where the locals cultivated poppies. The farmers in the area were very cautious of strangers and would alert authorities immediately if they noticed anything suspicious. This was the perfect hideout for Goodman. It was rumored that Goodman had a private army of at least 300 gunmen protecting. They constantly patrolled the mountainous region, ready to help Goodman escape if necessary. They were even ordered to shoot down any aircraft flying over the area. Goodman moved like a ghost. No one knew where he was. When dining at a restaurant, Goodman's bodyguards would confiscate everyone's phones. After finishing their meal, they would pay the bill and return the phones to the diners. During this time, the U.S. authorities made numerous attempts to ambush places where Goodman might visit, but all were in vain. It was as if Goodman could anticipate every move the police made. The police always had accurate information. Goodman was always one step ahead, escaping before they could arrive. To continue expanding his power, Goodman built a massive white powder trafficking network by sea, land, and air, covering the entire United States. In February 2014, after 13 years on the run, Goodman had become a notorious name worldwide, regarded as the greatest white powder lord of all time. Goodman was placed on Interpol's list of the world's most wanted criminals. The U.S. government received intelligence that Goodman would visit his daughter at a safe house in Los Angeles. They immediately launched a large-scale operation to capture him, involving the Navy and Army. At 6:40 a.m., Goodman was arrested at a hotel. That afternoon, Goodman was taken to Los Angeles International Airport, where numerous reporters had gathered after receiving the news. Goodman was then escorted onto a Black Hawk helicopter and flown to the Metropolitan Detention Center, a federal prison in Manhattan, New York. This was one of the most secure prisons in the United States, located in a secluded area. To enter the prison, one had to pass through 15 security gates, each gate only opening after the previous one had closed. Inside and outside the prison were equipped with extensive surveillance cameras, and many guards were armed and patrolled continuously. After his capture, Goodman was placed in a solitary confinement cell with the highest level of security. Goodman's cell was very cramped and Spartan, with only a single bed against the wall, a sink, and a toilet. A surveillance camera was installed in the cell, monitoring all of Goodman's activities 24/7. To provide Goodman with some privacy, a small screen was installed near the toilet to shield him when using it. Due to his history of escaping, Goodman was closely monitored. He was not allowed to participate in outdoor activities, communicate with other inmates, or contact his family. Each month, Goodman was allowed to receive $48 to buy personal necessity. He had only 1 hour a day to exercise in the yard. Meanwhile, the U.S. government continued to pressure Mexico to extradite Goodman to the U.S. for trial, but Mexico refused. However, no one expected that even in such a tightly secured prison, Goodman would plan another spectacular escape. More than a year after his arrest, on the evening of Sunday, July 11, 2015, guards were still monitoring the inmates through the surveillance cameras as usual. The screen showed the time as 8:43 p.m. Goodman was lying on his bed, occasionally watching TV or sleeping. Everything seemed very normal. 7 minutes later, Goodman got out of bed and went to the bathroom. He then walked around the room for a while, before returning to the toilet, crouching down as if observing something. Goodman then returned to bed and changed his shoes. At 8:52 p.m., Goodman sat on the bed and took the towel hanging on the partition. At 9:17 p.m., Goodman disappeared from the surveillance cam. 25 minutes later, sensing something was wrong, the guards immediately went to Goodman's cell to check. They opened the cell door and were stunned by what they saw. Under the toilet was a large hole 50 centimeters in diameter, next to which lay a concrete slab. At the bottom of the hole was a 10-meter-long ladder leading down to a tunnel. The tunnel was 1.7 meters high and 75 centimeters wide, equipped with lighting, ventilation, oxygen tanks, and other necessary items. A motorcycle was found inside the tunnel, believed to have been used to transport construction material. The tunnel was approximately 1.5 kilometers long, leading to an abandoned house. Inside, the floor was littered with sand and various other items. Near the entrance to the tunnel, a wheelbarrow was found, used to transport the soil and rock. It was estimated that this underground project was a large-scale endeavor requiring a lot of time and effort to complete. Clearly, Goodman had external assistance. According to investigations, after Goodman was arrested, his family quietly planned his rescue. Realizing that the prison was heavily guarded, they bribed a guard to smuggle in a wristwatch with a tracking device for Goodman, allowing them to pinpoint his exact location. Next, they purchased a piece of land near the prison and built a house on it. The area was under construction, so the frequent transportation of soil, rocks, and machinery did not arouse suspicion. To make it easier for Goodman to move through the tunnel, they designed its height to be 1.7 meters, just enough for him to walk comfortably. During the excavation, Goodman could hear noises from below. Naturally, the patrolling guards could also hear strange sounds, but they had been bribed by Goodman and turned a blind eye. After a year of hard work, the tunnel was finally completed. Immediately after discovering Goodman's escape, the entire prison was locked down, and no one was allowed in or out. Helicopters were deployed to search for Goodman from above. The U.S. government also ordered strict control over all airports and seaports to prevent him fleeing the country. Goodman's second spectacular escape caused a worldwide sensation. Many people began to doubt the competence of the U.S. government. 2 days after his escape, Goodman was still missing. the U.S. government launched a large-scale purge within the government, arresting and prosecuting many corrupt officials. In a press conference, the U.S. government announced a $3.8 million reward for anyone providing information leading to Goodman's capture. After 2 successful escapes, Goodman became even more arrogant and daring. In 2012, Kate Castillo, famous Mexican actress, wrote an open letter expressing her admiration for Goodman. After hearing about this, Goodman contacted Kate, expressing his desire to make a film about his life. American actor Sean Penn, after hearing the story from friends, made several trips to Mexico to meet Goodman. Both wanted to interview Goodman, and he agreed. In October 2015, Kate and Sean had a 7-hour meeting with Goodman at a secret hideout. The U.S. government discovered this meeting and launched a surprise raid on Goodman's hideout. However, Goodman had anticipated the raid and once again managed to escape. But after this fateful meeting, Goodman's whereabouts were exposed. 3 months later, the U.S. and Mexico coordinated the Black Swan operation, deploying elite special forces from the U.S. Marines, U.S. Army, and Mexican Federal Police to hunt down Goodman. They surrounded the Sinaloa cartel's hideout in Tijuana, coastal city in Northern California, and engaged in intense gunfire with the cartel member. Once again, Goodman tried to escape through a 1.5 kilometers long secret tunnel. He stole a car near the tunnel's exit and drove south for 20 kilometers before being intercepted by 4 members of the Special Forces. Cornered, Goodman attempted to bribe the officers with a large sum of money. This time, he failed. According to intelligence, 40 heavily armed, white powder traffickers are on their way to rescue Goodman. The Special Forces quickly moved Goodman to a nearby motel while waiting for reinforcements. Shortly after, 11 Marine units escorted Goodman during the Black Swan operation. 5 cartel members were killed, 6 were captured, and 1 Marine was injured. After Goodman's capture, the U.S. president held a press conference to announce the good news. Several countries also sent their congratulations to the United States. On January 19, 2017, Goodman was extradited to the United States. He was imprisoned in the most heavily guarded area of the Metropolitan Detention Center in Manhattan, New York, under 24/7 armed surveillance. On November 5, 2018, Goodman's trial began at the federal court in New York. He was charged with 10 crimes, including white powder trafficking, illegal possession of firearms, money laundering, and more. The identities of the jurors were kept secret to ensure their safety. After deliberation, the jury delivered a verdict. Don Goodman, also known as El Chapo, was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 35 years, and all his assets were confiscated, valued at $12.6 billion, approximately $318,000 billion in today's currency. Goodman was transferred to ADX Florence, the most secure federal prison in the United States, located in Florence, Colorado. ADX Florence is a maximum security prison holding around 336 inmates. Each inmate is held in a solitary cell with no communication allowed between them. The cell walls are made of reinforced concrete, designed to prevent any possibility of tunneling and escape. Inmates are allowed out of their cells for only 1 hour each day to exercise. The entire prison is monitored 24/7 by armed guards. Goodman, once a poor child who rose to become the kingpin of a vast white powder empire, spreading crimes worldwide and destroying countless families, now pays the price for his crimes in the most secure prison in the United States, where no one has ever successfully escaped. Goodman will spend the rest of his life in solitude and despair.